Today's Mercedes-Benz interview of the day brought to you by Mercedes-Benz EV, the versatile EQB to the sublime EQS sedan. The feeling is all Mercedes. The vehicle is all electric. The choice all yours. Learn more, mbusa.com/EQ. Our good buddy, Louis Riddick, covering the NFL draft, and he'll be on site again in Detroit. It'll be day 2 of the draft starting on ESPN2 at 7 Eastern, and then Saturday back on the mothership. Louis, if the Falcons had called you last week, let's say Terry Fontenot called you and said, hey, we're thinking about taking Raheem Morris. Or if Raheem Morris had called you, we're thinking about taking Michael Penix Jr. Your reaction would have been what?
First, I would have said, well why? Considering where you're at in your program build, meaning you're right there. You're right there as far as being able to win the South, get into the playoffs, and then who knows what happens, especially if, Raheem, you can get somebody to fix or help fix what has been a years-long problem as far as rushing the passer. You guys this organization has thrown draft capital, free agent capital at it. It just hasn't worked. And you have all of them sitting there at 8 at your disposal. You can pick whichever one you want. And with Kirk, I'm assuming he's good to go, right? You gave him $100 million guaranteed, right? So what's the deal there? Now, I know, as the great Ron Wolf always said, and Andy Reid used to tell us, the best time to pick your franchise quarterback is when you don't need your franchise quarterback. I get that. I mean, you're not going to get anything. You're not getting any return on your investment this year with that guy. So if you're willing to say, hey, look, we're okay with that, we'll hit it the rest of the draft. And we'll be able to address that pass rush position, and we'll still be okay, even if we don't get a return on that first round pick. That I guess I would say more power to you. But good luck. You better hit, because as we know, like, patience isn't something that NFL owners have a whole lot of. So you better be winning regardless. And I get thinking about the long term, because Michael could be fantastic, and if you believe it, hey, I'm never one to ever kind of talk somebody out of believing that they may have found a franchise quarterback. That's why I never had any issue with the Patriots taking one. If the Giants felt like they needed one, I never have an issue with that.
But best case scenario is he doesn't play for 3 years.
Right.
Because you'll have Cousins playing well. You're paying him for 3 years guaranteed. And then he's going to be 27 when he probably gets a chance to start in the NFL.
Yep.
I want to take advantage of the rookie contract at that position. So that, I didn't understand it. Now, I've said before, I wouldn't have brought in Kirk Cousins for that kind of money coming off Achilles surgery. So I wouldn't have done that. Now, would I have gone all in for a quarterback? Yes. But I just think you got to address needs, just like, Green Bay. It now looks like they did the right job with Jordan Love, but in the moment they didn't do the right job right thing, because they didn't add to a team that was a Super Bowl contender.
But they, again, but as you know, I mean, it's also trading back into the first and the bottom quarter of the round to get that quarterback instead of taking him 8.
Yeah.
See, that's the rub right there. That's where you're going. Look, you could get, arguably, you could get a day one impact player. You could have got a day one impact player that steps in and helps your defense maybe get people off the field, so your new offense led by Kirk Cousins, who you gave $100 million to, can have more cracks at it. Now you don't have that guy. So look, it's one of those where I saw some video of Terry Fontenot talking to Arthur Blank in the draft room.
He's explaining what Arthur Blank's like, wait a minute, what are you telling me? Yes, exactly trust right. Me. Trust me.
I would love to have been a fly on the wall on that one,
man. Who had a great night last night?
I think Baltimore always winds up having great nights because Nate Wiggins, the selection of him at 30. Nate was Quinyon Mitchell was my number one corner, but him and Nate Wiggins were 1 and 1A. Okay. Because of the way they play, which is so competitive and tough and physical. And you always hear down in Baltimore, John Harbaugh's always talking about play like a Raven. Well, what does that mean? Well, I think if you turn on the tape of Nate Wiggins at Clemson, you'll see what it means. You watch the North Carolina game where he tracks a dude down from 15 yards behind when he could have easily given up on the play. That's what it means. When you watch him covering Keon Coleman and Johnny Wilson at Florida State, and then he'll go in the slot and cover guys like Tez Walker from North Carolina, totally different body type, and shut them all down. That's playing like a race. So that, to me, that team, that organization probably knows who they are as well as anyone in the National Football League. Now, I know people say, well, they ain't winning any Super Bowls. I mean, they ain't getting past Patrick yet, but that's besides the point. They understand the draft. They understand how to find their guys. And for them to sit there with cornerback being a top 2 need and sit there at 30 and watch a guy like Nate Wiggins fall all the way down because of all those offensive players who went above him, that's a great night. If you're Rick DeCosta, if you're Steve Bisciotti, you went home last night going, damn, we're pretty good at this thing.
The Chiefs know their identity.
Yep.
But I'm wondering if Buffalo knows its identity, because Buffalo trades with Kansas City, and Kansas City says, okay, we'll take Xavier. We'll take the fastest guy in the draft.
Yeah.
Let me start with Buffalo. What do you make of what Buffalo's trying to do?
Yeah, it's interesting because, like, the two wide receivers, like, late in the draft, the 2 Xaviers that went, Worthy and then Leggett, who went to Carolina, who trades with Buffalo and Buffalo trades out of the first. Like, both of those odds, of those 2, Leggett is the one that if I'm Buffalo, I would have wanted. The bigger guy, 6'1", 220, a true X wide receiver on the outside who has 4.3 speed. He looks like A.J. Brown. That's who I think he'll be.
Wow.
He'll be that catch and run guy who will just go 90 because he's 4'3", or at 220 pounds, he's going to run over your small linebackers and your safeties and corners. And he can return punts. He's all that. That's the kind of guy, like that's that guy that Josh Allen, you could picture Xavier Leggett up there in Buffalo with Josh Allen and Khalil Shakir in the slot. I mean, that just makes so much sense to me. And I was like, man, like they just gave away those 2 dudes. Like, if they wanted Xavier Worthy, same thing, they just gave him away. Now, there's other good receivers coming up here that are going to go off the board early. Like a guy like A.D. Mitchell from Texas, body type wise, fits what I think Buffalo needs in terms of how you construct the wide receiver room. We'll see. They may trade down again. I'll be sitting there going, all right. Maybe you have some other plans.
Who had a better night last night, Denver or Minnesota, from the quarterbacking perspective?
Wow, that's a real good one, man. I would say Minnesota, simply because I think that, one, Minnesota has the best, I think, situation to offer any of these young quarterbacks. Solid offensive line, 2 bookend tackles, a running back in Aaron Jones who has proven in the NFL he can do it all, catch out of the backfield and run it. TJ Hawkinson comes back healthy. You have a top 3 tight end in the NFL. You have maybe arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL, maybe the best 2 in the NFL in Jordan Addison. And you have Kevin O'Connell, who I've been told, look, Josh McCown, who went up there, who, gets released in Carolina, goes up there to be the quarterback coach. When I saw him at the combine, he said, one of the best things about our situation for a young quarterback is that Kevin has answers for young quarterbacks when they see something they don't quite understand, or they see a situation, they go, how am I supposed to handle this? There's no gray area. Their rules, their methodology, their philosophy is so airtight. I shouldn't say airtight. Has so many different things that it can go to answer anything defenses can do, that there's nothing a young quarterback will be able to say, hey, you know what, my quarterback coach, my offensive coordinator doesn't have an answer for me. And that's why Kirk Cousins, I believe, took his game to a whole nother level when Kevin got there and played the way he did. So for a guy like J.J. McCarthy to go in there now and be able to sit behind Sam, who also has played in this styleless system out there in San Fran, that whole Sean McVay, type of system, I think it's just perfect for him. It's perfect for him to sit there, bide his time, and when he's ready to go and they're ready to put him in there, look at all the things he has to work with. Now, look, Sean Payton is someone who I don't think, as much as people respect him as a coach, I don't think people really understand, unless you've talked to him for a little bit, just how smart this dude is when it comes to being able to assess strengths and weaknesses in offensive players and put them in good spots. And if he believes in Bo Nix the way he obviously does to draft him where he did, you can best believe he's going to have Bo Nix in positions to really take advantage of his strengths. And I think Bo is a darn good quarterback, and I think he'll excel given the way Sean coaches that position. and how multiple he can be in terms of utilizing guys, whether you have a big giant arm and can throw the football down the field like Jameis, or you're someone who was like Drew, who was much more cerebral, which I think Bo Nix is like right in between there. And I think we're going to see that.
I know you're busy. Always great to talk to you. Have a good weekend.
You bet, man. Thanks a lot for having me.
Louis Riddick, ESPN NFL college football analyst, and also worked in the front office with Washington and the Eagles. Part of the draft day coverage, and ESPN has that for you tonight. ESPN 2 at 7 Eastern, then Saturday on the Mothership beginning at noon Eastern.